Joel Torres from Contralona, and John Alba from Spectrum Sports. You will be next. Joel.
Hi, Cody. How are you? So great to meet you.
Oh, very nice to meet you, too.
So, Cody, talking about Red Velvet and your match tonight against Shaq and Jade Cargill, and obviously Red Velvet being a Latina wrestler, you know, you guys in AEW have shown a lot of importance to the Latino pro wrestling. How important is for you to have a Latina wrestler like Red Velvet by your side tonight on this match?
I think it's just a beautiful thing as far as to have diversity in your locker room and diversity in your space, and to put it out there and it be excellent content. Some of you may know, people who have studied the business, it used to not be that way because promoters were really adamant about only having one of a particular demographic or even a minority, and they would try to almost make that a gimmick to a degree. And this is years and years and years ago. I'm not talking about anybody currently. But today, the best wrestlers are from all around the world. You can find them in pockets from the north to south, east to west, and that to me is very exciting. I want to continue to cultivate. I take scouting trips even during the pandemic. And I'm excited as the world slowly opens up and safely opens up to continue those scouting trips, because the diversity for us is paramount, and we want to represent as many individuals and cultures and identities as we can. I think the wrestling language, the language of wrestling, is universal.
Thanks, Cody. John Alba, you're going to be next, and then following John will be emanate from WrestleJoy. So, John, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, guys. Cody, first off, congratulations to you and Brandy on the baby. Very exciting stuff. Believe it or not, it has been pretty much a year that we are in the middle of this pandemic era of pro wrestling. And it really felt like AEW was on the verge of breaking through to another level with Blood and Guts coming up and the debuts of Brody Lee and Matt Hardy, and then everything shut down. So what I'd like to know is, where do you think AEW was heading before the pandemic and what you were able to accomplish, and how can you pick up from that place and ensure that you spend the rest of 2021 and beyond getting back to where you guys were on track to be?
Well, we were heading to the frickin' moon, buddy. I honestly, we were rolling, and you look at Prudential Center and that sellout and what Blood and Guts was going to be. That's so wonderful. But the pandemic happened not just to wrestling. You know, it did hit the hospitality industry really hard. It did hit entertainment incredibly hard, but it hit everywhere really hard, and a lot of people have faced so many hardships. I think the number is 40 million unemployed. Forgive me if that's hyperbole. I don't think it is, though. So I don't want to, whine about what happened to us. Instead, I want to help those who have experienced it with us, which the wrestling fan wasn't sure they were going to get wrestling on a weekly basis. You hear a lot about these fabled Norcross shows that happened when AEW and the pandemic first hit and lockdown started to happen, and the marathon, the march, 30-something matches, and in only 26 hours. It was some absurd data that we were able to pull it off, and those shows genuinely saved the company. That's why they have such a soft spot, because our job is to provide content for TNT, and we have continued to do that, and they've been such a wonderful partner. But we had to pivot like everybody else had to pivot. And now, as vaccines are starting to become regular, and the Johnson & Johnson one was just approved, and you start to see vaccines for every citizen of the U.S., I think there is going to be a large bounce back with people who want to go out there and get their entertainment, get it safely, and get back to the way things were. I really think it will only behoove AEW in time, because we never gave up. We never flinched. Signings were still happening, big signings at that. and progress was being made in the show. We didn't just pump out some evergreen content, say wait, and say we'll be right back. We've been here the whole time. So I think we'll continue on that trajectory. This was good, a good challenge for us that we met it head first, and I think we set the standard for how wrestling can be done in a pandemic with how Keith Mitchell and Tim Wahlberg shot wrestling from Daly's Place and continued to shoot it, with Tony's application of the locker room and getting every independent wrestler who was out of work, basically some sort of work at AEW, and making them part of our crowd, the testing protocols, the temperature scans, the fact that I can't walk from one room to another without a certain wristband on. It is overkill, but it needed to be overkill, and it's provided a safe working environment. So I'm ready for the next wave of it, though, and hopefully slowly but surely. Texas, I heard, just opened up, but we aren't going to be the first to dip our toes into that water. We're going to do this as safely and properly as we can, so that wrestling fans feel comfortable.
Thanks, Cody. All right, so next up is going to be Amy Nemedy from WrestleJoy, and then I'm going to follow with a write-in question from Kyle Masters of All Elite Podcast. So, Amy, you're up.
Amy, you need to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Hi, Cody. Thank you very much for taking my question. I want to touch back to Red Velvet real quick. You mentioned that she has epically stepped into this position to replace Brandy within this feud. You had also mentioned that you have her on a sort of special retainer contract. Considering that we've seen sort of a meteoric rise with her from her ring work to her promo work, especially in the build-up to this feud with Shaq and Jade, what's next for Red Velvet? And may we possibly see her signed full-time with AEW?
I mean, it's a beautiful question, and to me the answer is within the question. She's stepped up. We've seen her, and I would hope that it turns into a full-time gig and a part of being a part of the All Elite locker room full time. Not that a tier 0 or a retainer type contract isn't being part of our family, but Tony is really careful, conservative, and diligent about when you see that such and such is All Elite graphic. He really wants to make sure that that's somebody in it for the long haul, somebody there for the future, and I think that's a big part of today. As well, specifically Red Velvet, and looking at her, and she went from being a replacement to she's not a replacement at all. She's changed the makeup of the match. So I kind of want you to ask me that same question in 24 hours. I think she's going to kill it, and I think she's going to hopefully become part of our family. I don't mean I could be talking complete nonsense in this moment, because I bet you I'm going to look at a legal memo here in a second, and perhaps we already signed her, but I'm pretty sure I'd like to advance things with her if all goes well tonight and if she's able to execute when the red light is on.
Okay. I'm going to ask a question on behalf of Kyle Masters from All Elite Podcast, and then following that will be Stephanie Chase from Digital Spy. So, Cody, the question from Kyle. The AEW Women's Tournament has been a great success so far in fan enjoyment. Most of the tournaments have been very well received in AEW since its inception. Are tournaments now becoming a staple of AEW? Will we see more in the future, especially on Dynamite / PPVs? And will we see the American Nightmare in more of these in the future as well?
Oh, tournaments are absolutely part of what we do. Initially looking at AEW, we wanted to have several portions of the show provide a sports-based outlook on our industry, and a tournament's so good for wrestling because those matches in a tournament are just for the opportunity at another match. You're buying more time. You're getting more water in the glass. And I was part of the TNT title tournament, and just a beautiful thing. Some of my favorite shows growing up were tournaments. And even the 2-day classics, the Crockett Cup all the way to King of the Ring. A tournament, when you do it right, is certainly something special. And I think for sure you'll see more tournaments, and tournaments that right now we have one that's geared around the AEW Women's World Championship. Sheeta being such a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful champion, just an absolute ace. And then you're going to see tournaments that perhaps have their own peripheral item that involves and things of that nature. So tournaments around the titles and tournaments around bragging rights and specific things that talents can acquire. But yeah, there'll be more tournaments for sure. I'd hope to not only see tag tournaments and singles tournaments, but somewhere down the line, I'd love to see a trios tournament as well.
Okay, thanks, Cody. Okay, Stephanie Chase, you're going to be next, and following Stephanie will be Bill Pritchard from WrestleZone. Stephanie, you're up.
Hi, Cody. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. And thanks for talking to me today. I was wondering, we know how much of a fan of Sting you were growing up. So what has it meant to you personally to see him sign with AEW and for your company to be able to be the ones to give him an opportunity to have another run?
That's a great question. Nobody was more of a little stinger than me. I would go to the shows, and the merchandise stands had the tent tat that you would put on your face, and my mom would wet the tat, and then I'd be so excited I'd usually take it off too early and have like a real NWO Bush League style Sting paint on my face. But I'm such a fan, and I think Sting right now, the question is, can Sting have a regular wrestling match? Can he do that? Can he go bell to bell in a live setting? I would bet he absolutely can. There's a lot left, and I don't know if anyone noticed when he hit Ricky Starks with the bat, but his frenetic movement, his dynamic motion is still there, and that's dangerous as far as if you're his opponent, especially because people forget Sting is a big guy. He's from a generation where there were he was more of a light heavyweight, but now he's definitely a full-blown heavyweight and a little bit taller than some of our roster. Having him here is wonderful. I want to make sure he's happy. I want to make sure he has a great place to be here, and I think he's in it for the long haul with AEW and our family here.
Thanks, Cody.